Welcome to the afternoon forum. We've used all kinds of names for this forum. I'm calling it the Legacy Forum, but it's really about ski history. And we are quite honored to not just have these four plus Barbara up here, famous people. These four famous people up here represent way over 200 years worth of skiing experience. If we added in a few other people, one of which just had a 90th birthday and he's been skiing for almost 80 some odd years, who was in the Olympics in 1960, I think. And he didn't come home with a gold medal, but he did come home. Actually, he stayed here with a new wife, I think, right? Did you guys meet at the Olympics, during the Olympics?
Yeah.
I thought so. Anyway, if you added everybody's experience up in this room, it'd probably be over 1,000 years, I bet. This is to
I'm only 12.
What's that?
I'm only 12.
This is to take a moment to look back into history. I think we all know that if we forget history, or if we don't pay attention to history, if we don't record it accurately, we're doomed to repeat it. In some cases. In other cases, we're quite fortunate to have historians and people that do record these moments in time and then archive and display them and then call our attention to that history so that we can learn more. And that's why we have this august group with us. We've got about 80 minutes. We're going to take just a few for me to introduce everybody with a very abbreviated bio, but in your booklet is a complete bio of each individual, and I encourage you to read those. It's just remarkable what they've accomplished. It'd take too much time for me to read those and then leave them any time. Starting with Ingrid Wicken on the far end down there. Ingrid hails from Southern California, from Norco. She grew up there. She got her college education, a couple of degrees, and is still living in Norco. And she is Professor Emeritus from Moreno Valley College. She's a professor, or you were. You're retired now, is that right, Ingrid?
Yes.
Okay. Kinesiology. She's an author of 5 books. She's received 5 skate awards from the International Ski History Association, a 4-time recipient of Far West Western Ski Heritage Award, 2018 Snowsports Builder Award from Far West. But more than anything, Ingrid is here because she really is the leading authority of all things ski history in Southern California. I think you told me that just this week, NPR called you to see if there was snow in Southern California?
Well, Mount Waterman in Southern California is for sale. Has anybody skied Mount Waterman? So it's for sale. So they were doing an article on Mount Waterman and its history, and then I have another interview scheduled for Tuesday about Mount Waterman. Somebody who wants to do an article and sell it to the New York Times. So,
well, then we should treat you with a little more respect than we have. Sitting next to Ingrid is Bill Clark. I consider Bill a friend, though we don't get together socially, but we've known each other for almost 40 years now, believe it or not. We're calling him the director of the Auburn Ski Club. It's actually ASCT now. But they train, they provide facilities and coaching for up to maybe beyond 800 kids. Up on top of Donner Summit, next to Boreal. It's not the ski area, though they do. Actually, the Auburn Ski Club owns that land, and they have a relationship with Boreal, a separate company, but they use the facilities. They run national championships. They're highly recognized by U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association and USSA before that. Bill is serving as the Vice President of the Snowsports Museum Board of Directors. If you go way, way back, he was a four-way competitor on the Sierra College ski team. He says he was better in some events than others. That applies to me. In 2013, I was quite honored to nominate Bill, and he got recognized with the Hans George Award from Far West, which is our highest award, and very deserving of that. Before all of that, or during some of that time, Bill was the director of the Western Ski Sport Museum, which is, the building is right in front of the Boreal Lodge. Snowshoe Thompson, surrounded by 4 flags, is right there at the beginning of the parking lot. Bill lived in the museum with his family, his wife and 3 daughters, for at least, he doesn't know, about 20 years. Now, if that's not living your job, living in the museum, I don't know what is. That qualifies him for something, I'm not sure what. Sitting over on this end is Allan Engen. Allan is the son of Alf Engen. Allan's the founder of one of the founders of the Alf Engen Museum, which Pam and I visited this year, and we're really quite impressed with the scope, the technology, the success of that museum. Allan's a historian and author. He's the founder there of that museum. He was the director of the Alta Ski School, just like his dad. He was a co-captain of the University of Utah ski team and a collegiate All-American in 1960. And I can tell you, in 1960, there were a lot of famous U.S. skiers, or about to be famous, that you had to beat. One, I think, was Moose Barrows, because you won the downhill, right? Moose was still waiting to run into something big and tear his legs up at that point. But Pam and I were at the U.S. Ski Hall of Fame last summer, and Allan, his dad, and I think your 2 uncles are all 4 in that museum. And I don't think any other family has that many members that have been on it so far. And then sitting to his right, your left, in the grayer hair than some, is John Lundin. John is the founder of the Washington State Ski and Snowboard Museum. He's an author, an historian. He's a prolific writer. He's got more degrees than I do, by far, 3 times more, I think. But he worked as an attorney, a defense lawyer. He has a BA and law degree from the University of Washington. And then just to try to figure out how cities, municipalities make decisions, he went and got his master's of urban and regional planning from George Washington University, not to function, but just to try to work with those people or understand them. Good luck with that. If you did figure something out, tell Bill, because he's having some problems over there.
Well, Ingrid has her issues too.
Yeah, Ingrid has got a whole second half of her museum waiting for the city fathers to vote. John is the author of 4 books on Sun Valley and on ski jumping. Everyone up here has got some experience. He's also an athlete. He considers himself a skier, a rower, a sailor, a lifelong sportsman. You didn't notice, but I got my topsiders on, John, today. John's the recipient of 3 skate awards and 2 Far West Western Ski Heritage Awards, but it's not fair to any of these people to say this is their bio. That's just a little thumbnail sketch. Now we're going to go into about 10 minutes for each to introduce you to their particular facility. My hope is that you come away with a lot more knowledge about skiing, but you come away motivated to go visit these, and in the case of all 4, donate some money and help them make it even better. So Ingrid, would you, I think we're going to start with Ingrid, is that right? Barbara? Did we go back to the...
I think that's right.
Ingrid, you want to come over here, or you can stand right there?
I think I'm good right here.
Okay.
So I'll give you a little background about how the ski library started, I started collecting ski books in the late 1970s when I was pursuing my bachelor's, and I ended up doing a master's thesis on the biomechanical analysis of the diagonal stride in cross-country skiing on skis versus on roller skis. But that really got the book collecting bug going. So by 1995, you can go ahead and go over and show some pictures of the library. By 1995, I had 850 books on skiing, which I thought was really a lot. Now I have nearly 5,000 from all over the world.
Hey Barbara, if you'll back up one.
Sure.
This black and white right in the middle, I think, is Doug Pfeiffer.
That's Doug Pfeiffer.
Doug Pfeiffer is considered to be one of the 25 most influential people in North American skiing as of this year. He passed away just this year.
Right.
We got him featured there.
Well, and a couple of years ago, when Doug was still alive, I went up to Big Bear and he and I packed up his library and archive, and his library and archive is at my library.
Oh, that's real.
Now, yeah, so with the combination of his library and my library, I mean, I go down there sometimes. It's in a separate building. It's like a modular classroom. It's almost 1,000 square feet, and I'll go in there and I'm doing some, and I stop and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, because of what's in there and what the composition of the library is. So in 2004, I acquired that building, decided I would make it the California Ski Library. I didn't make it a museum because my focus was on books and magazines and brochures. I didn't want it to be on boots and skis and clothing, so I focused. You can see it really probably is a museum now, but the focus is still the books and the magazines. I probably have 15 or 20,000 photographs. But after I bought the building, that really generated donations from other people. So the first donation that I received after getting the building was from a woman named Ethel Vandegrift. She was the ski writer for the LA Times from the late 1930s to the mid 1950s. And I met her two sons when I started working on my first book around the year 2000. She had passed away in 1993, but everything from her career was still in her house in Los Angeles. And I had made numerous trips down there with a copy machine when I was working on my first book. And finally, when I got the building, I thought, you know, it would really make sense for her collection to be here. So I contacted one of her sons, and I said, you know, I've got this building. It would be great if your mom's stuff was here. And he goes, you know what, I think you're right. When do you want to come and get it? So,
Not when can I bring it to you?
well, that was okay. How many of you have heard of Wolfgang Lurt? So after I bought this building, Wolfie contacted me and he said, you know, I am so impressed with what you are doing. I want to donate my photograph collection to you. When can you come and get it? So I went to San Francisco where Wolfie lived, and he maintained an office that he rented. And I went up there and we sat in his office and went through his photographs, and I came home with an amazing photo collection, which he was a photographer at the 1950 World Championships in Aspen, and he was a photographer at the 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley. So those were two of the first major collections that I had gotten. If you go to the Ski Library website, you'll see many, many other collections. One of the most significant is Doug's there, and I brought home 99 boxes of stuff from Doug's house when he decided to donate that to the library. So my Norwegian friend says that the California Ski Library is the largest private ski library and archive in the world. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but I have a lot of stuff.
Oh boy.
And your most recent collection from PSI?
Oh, that's another thing I should mention is last year, the executive director from PSIAW, the Western Division, contacted me and said, you know, I'd like to develop a partnership with the California Ski Library and would like for you to be the official repository for PSIAW archives. And I'm, ooh, okay, more stuff. So we signed an agreement, and she brought some things that they'd had in storage, and I had some longtime PSIAW instructors donate some of their things to the library, so that just adds another element to the collection. But Jane has visited, Norbert and Sandra have been to the library, so they know. I call it the hippo. It's the happiest, incredible place on earth. So they've been there and know what's there. And Jane has given me many boxes of Far West archives and all copies of the Skier's Guide.
And my mother's ski outfit from the early 1930s.
Wow.
Impressive.
So it's...
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Does it fit you?
Yes.
So that's the ski library in a nutshell. It is open by appointment, so if you'd like to come and visit anytime, send me a text or an email, and it's on my property, and I'll meet you there, and you can spend as much time there as you like.
So one of the things that's coming up, thank you, Ingrid. Ingrid, you have 2 minutes left, and you can reserve that for yourself, or you can pass it on, like they do in the Senate or the House, I don't know.
We're going to have questions at the end, right?
Yes,
If anybody has
yes, we're going to have plenty of
questions.
questions.
Allan, can I just say, Ingrid is a marvelous resource for people who write about skiing. When I wrote my last book about ski jumping, she was generous enough to give me some fabulous pictures that I included. So thank you, and it's a wonderful resource that we can all tap into.
Well, let me just add into that. One of my favorite collections, I've always had kind of a special affinity for ski jumping, like John does for some reason. So over the years, I have amassed a collection of U.S. ski jumpers and jumps, about 2,000 photographs, and I have nearly 200 programs from ski jumping to winter carnivals from all over the U.S. So that's kind of dear to my heart because that's a collection that I've put together over the last 20 years or so.
I think everybody sitting at this table has got some attachment to jumping easily. Some of us have jumps in our backyard, I guess. For those of you who don't know, Ingrid is on the verge of doubling the size of her library. And she's got the building there. We're just waiting for the Norco City Council to give a nod, or the building department, and it's a classic. Okay, Bill, give us the update on the Snowsports Museum.
Well, maybe a little background. So, Western Ski Sport Museum on Donner Summit. If you don't know the background there, that's basically Bill Berry's collection. He started collecting with Auburn Ski Club back in the 1930s. Marvelous collector, not a real good record keeper. Bill was quite a character, for those of you that knew Bill Berry. So anyway, the museum there, Western Ski Sport Museum, has been Auburn Ski Club's facility for so long. And then, as you said, when I moved there to be the ski coach for the club, and just sort of inherited the museum, and it's still been with me, with my day job actually running the training center and the kids programs. But the state of that collection right now, a few years ago when the Snowsport Museum started effort over in Squaw Valley, Palisades, we jumped right in with both feet, ASC did, because it was time for that collection to be properly processed, archived, cataloged, and exhibited for our wonderful culture of snow sports. And so for the last, when did we start, Eddie? Eddie's been in the movement, we started in 2008? Yeah, something like that. That's been the goal, is that whole collection, lock, stock, and barrel, is going to go to the Snowsport Museum. The state of that collection right now is last fall, we started with interns from Sac State College, and all the exhibits have been broken down, and we are in the process of cataloging and archiving all of that material to get it ready to go to the eventual Snowsport Museum. So that's the status of that collection and where we are with that. And that collection will form the heart of the Snowsport Museum collection when that facility is up and running. to bring all these different collections that are in people's closets and different places together and have a home. So that's the plan. So as far as Snowsport Museum, I think the best thing, rather than me talk, is to show this wonderful video. This is the 4-minute version of a 10-minute video that Eddie's cousin put together, and marvelous job. So if we could show that. It says it all.
February 18th, 1960. Weeks of rain have flooded the valley, and as hordes of hooded spectators gather at Blythe Arena for the opening ceremonies, the rain turns to snow, obliterating race courses and parking lots in Squaw Valley. With all the 665 competitors from 31 nations assembled and the games declared open, Andrea Meade Lawrence skied down Red Dog, carrying the Olympic torch. Then, as if choreographed by Walt Disney, who was chairman of pageantry, which included opening, closing, and daily victory ceremonies, the sun broke through the clouds, and 2,000 doves of peace and 20,000 balloons took flight into a blue sky. When the 8th Olympic Winter Games came to a close, skiing in California and the West was forever changed, as it catapulted the region into international stardom. Pioneer resort owners improved their facilities, and new ones were developed. Today, the Tahoe area has the highest concentrations of ski areas and winter sports facilities in the Western Hemisphere, and the area has produced more Winter Olympians and World Cup athletes than any region in the USA. Yet we remain the only Olympic site in the world without an Olympic museum. First, the Washoe. For thousands of years, the Washoe people ventured up from Carson Valley to Lake Tahoe to hunt and fish in the surrounding mountains and meadows. In the 1850s, pioneer mining families living in the snowbound communities of Plumas and Sierra counties traveled on longboard skis to school, to visit neighbors, to haul supplies. Downhill ski competitions were held, with competitors exceeding 80 miles per hour, often 4 abreast, on 14-foot skis. Ironically, it was the 1931 Olympic tryouts and 1932 National Ski Tournament held at Granlabachen on Olympic Hill in Tahoe City that opened the eyes of the skiing public to California's abundance of snow, scenery, and fine weather. No one doubts that the history of skiing in the Sierra Nevada is exciting, colorful, and an important part of our Western culture. But where can one see it, touch it, learn about it? The idea of a museum to commemorate the seminal events of the 1960 Olympics and the Sierra Nevada's unique legacy of 150 years of winter sports has been in the hearts and minds of the skiing community for over 60 years.
The Snow Museum will be more than the amazing story of the 1960 Olympics. It'll bring together the heritage and legacy that dates all the way back to the gold rush, when the miners brought knowledge of skis to the hike camps and began the longboard culture. It'll bring together private collections, small museum collections, all that can be curated, archived, and exhibited for today's skiers and snowboarders. It'll also preserve what has yet to become, which is the future of our sport, because this is an ongoing history and culture of winter sports in our region. Well, a couple things.
Into
Speaking to the choir, I don't think I have to go into the fact that our ski heritage in this region is like nowhere else in the world. From the longboard skiers all the way through the 1960 Olympics, the best Olympics ever, to the culture that we have today, it's just hardly anything. The Western ski heritage is just unbelievable. And our mission with the Snowsports Museum is to bring it to life, not so much as a museum. I've never really liked the word museum. I think of stuffy cabinets full of dusty old things. It's really, to me, it's a cultural center, and it's about the cultural aspect. I need a little voice there. Okay, so it's about the culture of it to me, because this is not a static history, it's ongoing. And like you said, Allan, you have to understand history so we don't repeat it. I see it as we want to repeat it because it's such a wonderful culture and a wonderful sport. So when we create this new museum, it's going to be as much a cultural center as it is a museum. Last point is, we've been at this for 10 years. We've got architectural drawings. We're partners with Placer County, who owns the land where the park is at the entrance to Palisades. Placer County just completed an EIR that's been satisfied. We are locked and loaded and ready to begin a capital campaign, but we have one little problem. That property used to belong to the Forest Service. And when the Forest Service sold it to Placer County 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Eddie, I'm looking for Eddie, how long that was. They put
1960 Olympics.
Yeah, when they deeded it to Placer County some years ago, they put a deed restriction on it that said there could never be any commercial activity. Fine. But the Forest Service has taken the stance right now that a 501c3 museum would be a commercial activity. They're completely wrong. Placer County County Council has written an opinion. We've had an attorney write an opinion. A 501c3 museum is not a commercial activity. So the message I wanted to give, and we can talk about it more in question and answer, is we need help convincing the Forest Service that the museum located on Placer County's property, and Placer County is our partner with this, would not be a commercial activity. And what has happened is somebody in the Forest Service has made it up in their head that that would be a commercial activity, and they won't let go of it. So that's the last hurdle we have to getting entitlement to that land and moving forward with a capital campaign. So I hope we can talk more about that in question and answer. So what I'm saying is Far West, being such an amazing organization with so many members, we could use some muscle to try and create a campaign to get the Forest Service to change their mind.
Bill, whatever we say, government does. That's a real challenge. John Lundin, when we get to him, will tell you a better story than that. At first, it was the county throwing the huge road bump until we reminded them that Wendell Roby made decisions, and then they all said, well, I knew him, we can make a decision. We got over that bump, and now the Forest Service has got another one. There's no reason why we can't mount a letter-writing campaign and make them seem like we're serious about this.
We've been very diplomatic for the last 10 or 12 years, like letting the process go through. Now that Placer County is partnering with us on the project, it's just to the point now with bureaucratic foot dragging that we've just got to go. What's the right term? Postal?
It's time to play hardball.
It's time to play hardball, and we've been sitting back and waiting. But it's just silly, the fact that the Forest Service doesn't want to. They don't own the property. They haven't owned the property for 25 years. So it's kind of a strange thing that we're dealing with. And ironically, the Forest Service is such a big part of the ski heritage and everything that you'd think they would embrace that. But one of the local supervisors Forest supervisors just made that decision, and you know, if you know the way the Forest Service works, there really is no accountability. Each forest is kind of its own little kingdom, and so we've been fighting that battle for so long that it's time to get some muscle from far west.
It's quite remarkable when the county board of supervisors had their epiphany and said, well, okay, maybe we should do something. In that forum, and the ballroom was filled. There must have been 250 people there. The regional forester got up and gave a moving speech about how this is the right place, this is the right time, and you guys need to get your act together. The Forest Service is behind this. They were one of the advocates to get the county to say yes, and now they've had amnesia.
Yeah.
Allan, I just wanted to mention that Far West Ski Association has a very rich history of letter writing.
Oh,
We
yeah.
went through the Mineral King campaign, Sherman Bowl. At one time, we even had a full-time lobbyist in Washington DC. So we know how to do it. There's some of us still around from those days, and we could certainly help you with that.
That's exactly what I'm asking. I know that history.
Okay,
Allan, before we move on, how much money do you think you're gonna need to do the museum? Order of magnitude.
We're thinking about 15 to 20,000 million dollars. Sorry. But the thing is, we don't have that entitlement yet. Placer County owns the land. They're being patient. They're bureaucrats as well. But we're just sort of out of time on this. We need the Forest Service to relent, let the county give us the entitlement to the land, and move forward. So.
okay, well, we take your challenge, you've thrown it at our feet, and
Okay,
we'll
good.
try to rise. Anybody has questions, by the way, so Laura, you have a question?
No, I'm just confused about how one person can stall all this. I mean, what happened, are we not a democracy?
At the Forest Service, no.
My other thought was they let Dave McCoy do anything he wanted, and that was a commercial enterprise.
I think that underscores how each forest is run in their own way. And unfortunately on the Tahoe right now, we've had a forest supervisor who, for some reason, thinks a nonprofit museum run by volunteers with donations, a 501c3, would be commercial activity. He says, well, there's going to be a gift shop. And it's like, well, yeah, we're going to sell Eddie's books and all these wonderful books, John's books, and that money will go back into the museum operation. It's not commercial, so it defies logic. So, yeah.
Okay, now we're going to go on to, is there a question?
Oh, I just had a question, and this might be a dumb question, but when the Forest Service forces the ski resorts to close early, or close on time, whatever you want to call that, what is the reason behind that? Is that like a wildlife, or like a preservation of trees? What is the reason?
I'm not sure what you mean. Seasonally?
Yes, yeah, they have like a cutoff date every year.
I'm not familiar with that.
Service that decides that.
Yeah, I think the Forest Service in operating permits with operators, because my organization actually has a permit for the ski area next door. They do create operational plans that end the ski season for some ski areas at certain times. I'm not sure what the criteria is though.
Now we're going to move on to a true success story, well planned out, well funded. Bill, you want to pass that down? We're going to ask Allan Engen to give us a little description about first his museum, and then maybe a few comments about how it came to be. So, Allan, over to you.
That's a task right there. Thank you.
I think that's turned off.
That turned on.
Switch, push up on.
Is this a little better?
Yes.
Everybody can hear me? Well, this is an opportunity for me to talk a little bit about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the ski museum at Utah Olympic Park. And the namesake of the museum is named after my father, Engen. And I would maybe take a gentle perspective that we in the Intermountain area also have a very, very nice ski history, along with the Far West Ski Association, that goes back many, many years. And it started out, I think probably by saying this, I'm accurate on this, that getting the program started to get ski history started as an interest in the state of Utah in a big way started in the Engen Ski School. And the reason that this happened is one of the instructors by the name of Sue Raymer worked at the Marriott Library Ski Archives. It wasn't the Ski Archives at that time, it was just the Marriott Library at the University of Utah. And she worked with an associate by the name of Dr. Greg Thompson, and Sue was an instructor in the ski school at Allan, and she became very interested in asking the question, where is the history, the wonderful history that we have in this area? There just isn't anything. There are no books. There's really nothing that has really been written about ski history. Well, she was partly right and partly wrong. Granted, there weren't too many books, but there was a lot of scrapbooks. Everybody, all the skiers had scrapbooks of basically things that had taken place over the years. And so Sue and Dr. Thompson came up to my father and in his office said, Alf, we want to start an archive program and we would like to start the ski archives with your scrapbooks. And those scrapbooks were not maintained by my dad. They were maintained by my grandmother, Martha Engen. She kept records of everything that my father and my uncles and everybody had done all the way back to the early 1930s. And so Dad had about 6 or 7 of these big scrapbooks. And so they asked Dad if he would volunteer to donate those scrapbooks to the start of the ski archive program. And that's the way it started. We started very small with Dad's scrapbooks as a history basis. It grew. We found a large group of people that were really interested in skiing. And before long, we had an annual thing going with the ski archives where we'd have an annual get together, and it grew from about 100 people to 600 in just a matter of a few years. With that, I happened to be a part of the early group of promoting the ski archives. And my family, my wife Barbara here and I, why we would often talk, well, what are we going to do with all Dad's trophies? He had a house full of awards that he had won over the years. I mean hundreds, and that doesn't even include the medals. So we were saying, now what are we going to do with all of this? Because it is a legacy. I mean, it's a real story behind a lot of those big awards. And so we started talking about, well, why don't we think about doing a museum? And the story got out, and we started finding out that there was some interest in this. And so they said, well, you got to have some sort of a drawing of some kind to show. What do you mean when you say a museum? So we came up with a drawing, and I have a copy of it here in this book, and you can come and take a look at it if you'd like. But it was a little A-frame building, and it held about 1,000 square feet, and it would house Dad's trophies very well. Well, then the idea came along of saying, you know, maybe we ought to hook that museum in with the archive program, because we could make a tie there. We could tie in all of the records that are being maintained and housed at the ski archives, and we could also add to that and have a showplace that we could showcase to the world a lot of the things that were hidden away in the ski archives at the library. And so that idea was floated along, and it won a lot of support. A lot of people said, that's a great idea, but how are you going to make it happen? Well, along it comes about the idea that, you know, maybe we ought to hold an Olympics here in Salt Lake City. Well, I've gone through about 2 or 3 iterations where failures had occurred on making that happen, but lo and behold, it did happen. and we got the bid. And so the land that we actually were able to acquire for our museum was granted to us through the Salt Lake Organizing Committee, with the understanding that we would have to fund the building, but then turn the building over to the Olympic Games for 2002 so that they could run the Olympics. And then after that, why, we could have the building back. But we had a prime site. We had a prime site there at Utah Olympic Park that we could draw upon. And so we said, you know, I think we can make this thing work. And so we started with the idea of saying, let's give it a try and see what happens. Well, the big thing was we all had great ideas, but not one of us that started with the idea had any knowledge of how to build a museum. Not one, zero. And so we were starting with an idea only. And so one of the first things that I did is I went around to as many ski museums as I could to talk to people that were already in the business of running a ski museum. Bill is one of them that I talked to. And all of them said, well, here's some rules that I suggest that you follow. Number one, don't be in a big hurry to get a museum up and running, because it's going to be a long process. And boy, was he right. We started in 1989, and it wasn't until the late 1990s that we finally got the go-ahead to start the building. And in between that, there were many, many obstacles that we had to overcome. But in doing so, we met tremendous people from all walks of life that lended support to us and says, you know, this is a great idea, and having my father as the namesake, which was well received by everybody, let's go ahead and see what we could do. So one of the things that we tried to do was to find a group of major fundraisers, or people that had foundations. We found that by going out and asking for $25, $50, $100 donations, you know, we'd be looking at that 100 years from now and probably wouldn't even be close. But we were lucky enough to have two families in the Salt Lake area that said, we think that this is a good idea. The Quinney family, Joe Quinney, was a good lifetime friend of my father. They had worked together. Well, Joe was a prominent attorney in his lifetime, and he was also a judge at Edgar Hill. So Dad knew him from competitive days, and then when Dad went to Alta and started working there, why, Joe was also the major owner of Alta at that time. So anyway, the tie was absolutely built there, and they said, let's go ahead and we'll put money into it. And then if anybody's heard of the Eccles Foundation, they were the other big money people that came on board and helped us. So during our fundraising time, we short-circuited raising a large sum of money. We raised a little over $11 million. Now this is tax-free. I mean, we didn't ask for any public support at all. This is all private money. And so we were able to raise about $11 million, and we went ahead and built the building. And this is a picture of what basically the Quinney Center looks like. I don't have slides to show you, but you can kind of get an idea that it's a very attractive building. And it's the Joe Quinney Winter Sports Center, Engen Ski Museum. And we turned the building over. We built it in 2001, turned it over to the Salt Lake Olympic Organizing Committee. They used the building as a media center for the 2002 Olympics, and when they were finished with the Olympics in 2002, they moved all of their stuff out, and we had all of the stuff pre-made to put in the exhibits and everything to go into the building. So we started opening our doors as a museum in mid-2002, July, and we've been operating ever since.
Alan, I think that picture behind you is the building, the front of the building, right there.
Yep.
It's a good
You're
view of
looking at
it.
it, yeah.
Why don't we see if this computer will run your videos?
Okay, that's
And,
great.
and I'm grabbing that 2 minutes that that Ingrid so generously let me take, and I'm giving it to you, but we're gonna see if we can get it to
Okay, that's fine.
And then we'll see if we can ask you a question.
Okay, that's fine.
We've got 2 1-minute videos. One that's going to cover the museum that's the Olympic Museum, and one is the Engen Museum, which really covers the history of the Intermountain region. It's not just directed at a few individuals. And we get a couple other slides, Alan, if you would talk about a couple of them. One of the great things that this museum has had was the same executive director from day one for 20 years. Connie Nelson, right? It was Connie?
Connie was, Connie came on board right around the 2002 Olympic timeframe.
Okay.
Yep.
She took Pam and I through the museum, and 3 of the really, you're ahead, Barbara.
I know, sorry.
She took us through, and there are some interactive simulators in this museum which are extremely popular for lots of people, but particularly the kids that come, which is the education part of this. So we've got some pictures. Right there's Pam and I being jerked around with J.B. Holmes hang gliding down Alta. But Al, take it for a minute there.
Well, we do have some exhibits that people have a good time for, and I might just mention the fact that according to Connie, our former executive director, she maintained a count on how many people goes through the museum the last couple of years, and we're running about 500,000 people through the museum every year, which is not bad for beginners. So yes, this is a simulator that we have. We have a ski jumping simulator. We have exhibits that showcases my father's awards and other exhibits as well. One of the major highlights that we kind of look at our museum as being kind of unique is we focus on children. And we want to bring as many kids into the museum as we possibly can and tie their education into not just what they see in the museum, but also the core curriculum that they're learning about in school. And I want to give credit to my wife, Barbara, who is here today, because she was an educator and she was the one that spearheaded that particular education program. It is very unique, it's highly successful, and we have hundreds of kids that come up and go through the museum. And each time that they come, we try and keep something new for them, so it isn't just seeing the same things over and over and over again. The other thing that is unique, and I strongly urge you, Bill, to consider the concept of tying in with an educational facility of some kind, because what we have found, that is a key. Because you're not operating just from what you can gather and put into a building, but you're tying it into a historical basis that you can go back to, and you have an educational concern that can say, yes, this is accurate or it's not. Our Hall of Fame that we have, which is really extensive every year, but we do this in conjunction with the Ski Archive program. So that has worked really, really well, and for those that are interested in looking at putting together a museum, I would strongly recommend an educational program and then tying in with an educational process. And I'll leave it at that for other questions.
That's very good.
Allan?
This is, yes,
Can
Barbara.
I just make a comment with Allan? I've just been listening to your conundrum, and I've just been listening to your conundrum. Oh, I don't want to see that. Everybody can see. Well, maybe I should. One of the ways to get around obstinate people is, I'm sorry, to use the leverage.
What?
To use the leverage of kids. That sounds awful. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. But when you start saying, this is what we want to do for children, this is what we want to teach children, this facility will benefit children this way, it's really hard for them to say no. And it's really hard for the public to say no. And if you use that as kind of a selling point, bringing that in, it gives you one more tool in your toolbox. Did for us.
This is the guy that's got his finger on a lot of kids, 800 in that program.
Watch him say that.
We'll have them march on, I don't know, Sacramento. Okay, so now we're going to go over to John Lundin, and we're going to talk about Snoqualmie Summit and Washington State. I'm thinking that maybe some of you, maybe most of you, don't know about some of the history there. So John is an expert in history.
Okay. Well, thank you. As Allan said, I'm a recovering lawyer that reinvented myself as a historian and author, and I have had a wonderful time doing that. Hearing the long slog that my compatriots have had, I will give you some good news. In 2014, my friend Dave Moffett, whose family had owned all 4 ski areas of Snoqualmie Pass, called me up and said, I'm putting together a group and we want to start the Washington State Ski Museum. And that had been a long time objective of the skiers. For 20 or 30 years they'd been talking about it, but no one really took the bull by the horns. So he put together a group of 6 of us, none of us who had any experience with museums, and we had a larger group of 60, 80 long-time skiers, many of them wealthy, all of them knew each other as kind of an advisory group. And it took us 1 year from the first meeting to open the museum. It took us 1 year to raise the money, find the location, decide the kind of ski museum we wanted to have, work with a designer. You can't do anything yourself. You hire professional designers. There are firms that just do designs. And we had the ideas of what we wanted to do, and of course the designers brought them to fruition. And then there's another company that just builds the exhibits. So that whole process took us about 1 year, which we didn't realize it was unusual. We just thought, well, that's the way they go.
The secret, I think, is that all 6 of us were working full-time at the time. We had doctors and a couple of engineers and businessmen, and we didn't have time to waste. So we just went ahead with it and did it. We weren't planning to build our own building. We knew we were going to lease a facility, so that made it more interesting. But still, I guess we accomplished something in lightning speed.
Well, one thing, they got a brewery right next door. That's a good way to start.
This shows where it is. We decided not to put it in Seattle. It's on Snoqualmie Pass, just off of I-90. I-90, as you may know, you start in Seattle and you end up in Boston. Snoqualmie Pass is, as I said, there are 4 ski areas up there. It's where most of Seattle learned to ski. There's a huge volume of traffic goes through it. And so we decided that would be the best location. It's right between 2 of the 4 ski areas. It's right at the summit, and it's between Commonwealth Restaurant and a brew pub behind there. There's actually an opening from the restaurant right into the museum, so it's used as kind of the waiting area. So we've gotten huge numbers of non-skiers involved in ski history just because of its location. Now, one of the things, as Allan said, he visited other ski museums. Dave Moffat went touring, saw virtually every ski museum in the country, and came up with very specific ideas of what we both wanted and had to do. And he came to the conclusion that the old-fashioned kind of ski museum had 40 or 50 pairs of skis showing the evolution of skis, and 40 or 50 pairs of boots, and some pictures, and that's about it. We knew we'd have a very small location, so the number of artifacts we had were limited. And so we went the other way, and we have a very digital, interactive storytelling museum. Now, we have a wonderful long history in the state of Washington, and there are a series of stories that we decided we wanted to tell. And you can't do those stories justice just by putting artifacts there. So our museum is based on a series of basically computers and touchscreens. And the touchscreen takes you to a menu, and you can select what aspects of the menu you want to follow. And the touchscreens are in front of various exhibits. So you could either look at the exhibit and go on, or if you wanted to explore it in depth, you go to the touchscreen. It allows the visitors to kind of plan their own tour around the museum, and it's been very effective. Let me go back. We opened in 2015. We have 11 permanent exhibits and a number of changing exhibits. The exhibits we have are on Washington Olympians, snowboarding, Washington equipment and apparel companies. We have a number of them in the state. All forms of skiing, alpine, Nordic, ski jumping, ski mountaineering. Outdoors for All Foundation, which is our the foundation that teaches handicapped skiers that was started early on in Washington. An exhibit on Washington ski areas. As you see, there's 9 alpine, 6 community, and 24 Nordic ski facilities, and an exhibit on all ski areas. This is what our museum looks like. This is looking out to the entrance. This is our Olympians exhibit, and we actually have an operating rope tow for all those people that have never heard of a rope tow. Here's an example of the touchscreens. This is our Nordic exhibit, so you can see the skis, the boots, the other artifacts. And here's the touchscreen. And the touchscreen gives you a menu. You select what you want, and then you can see films or pictures or other things here, and there's also a large screen there, so other people can share what you're looking at. Very successful, and it allows us to really bring a lot of history to bear in a very small space. Now, this is an all-volunteer museum, and because of that, we're only open from Friday through Sunday in the afternoons, but we've run an amazing number of people through the museum and really expanded the knowledge of Washingtonians about our great history.
John, is that all year that it's open?
Yes. These are just some of the exhibits. Our supporters, people who've given us money, Washington Snowsports Ventures, Outdoors for All, Washington Manufacturers, and of course we have K2 and Mervyn and a number of others. The Olympian exhibit, ski mountaineering, which goes back to the late 1800s in Washington, Nordic traditions, and there's our rope tow, which is, people love that. Now our Washington Olympian exhibit is kind of the centerpiece of the museum, and it's right in the middle. You can see it. Oh, sorry. Pushing too many buttons here. You can walk all around it, so it's really multi-dimensional. When we opened in 2015, there were 37 Olympians who competed in 16 games and won 50 medals, all that we're updating at now. And it started with, we had 5 Olympians in the 1936 Olympian Games, but that was the first to have go beyond Nordic skiing and get into alpine skiing. Those are our 5 Olympians from 1936. And it went up through our well-known Gretchen Fraser, who won 2 Olympic medals in 1948. So this is really the centerpiece, as I said. It's very popular. This is a picture of opening. There were 17 Olympians who attended our opening, several of whom were Paralympians, and they've been very supportive of our museum, and that's been one of the keys to success. 2 in particular that have been really helpful, Phil Mayer and Debbie Armstrong. They've been terrific. Phil was 3-time World Cup champion, won a gold medal in slalom in '84, and Debbie won a gold medal in GS in 1984. Deb is actually on the board of directors. Her parents helped start the museum, and both of them have been terrifically helpful. You can see, sorry. Sorry to skip ahead. We have Deb's gold medal up there on display. Sorry about that. This is very sensitive. We have operator error going on here. Somehow I got bounced back to the earlier ones. Oh, here we go. Example of what they do, we do an annual fundraiser. Costs about $115,000 a year to operate because it is all volunteer. And the big ticket items are ski for a day with either Fairmare or Deborah Armstrong. And those are exciting, and they brought in a lot of revenue over the years. Of course, snowboarding is big. We have a number of snowboard manufacturers in Washington. Snowboarding really started in the earlier days up at Mount Baker, so we have a lot of support. We have snowboard Olympians. We have things like, they have a legendary bank slalom every year at Mount Baker because it started in the real funky years. This is what they give out. That's a roll of duct tape. That was an essential item for snowboarders in the early days. We recognize our financiers. We've had great support from the skiing community, a number of the commercial ventures. They've been very supportive of our efforts. We have links to other businesses who support us in other ways by giving us merchandise and help with our facilities. Now, one part of our museum is outreach, and that was part of our essential mission. Of course, there's the build it and they will come approach, which we did and they have come. But part of our mission is to go out in the community and really bring the mission of ski history to the public. And we're fortunate that we have 3 ski historians on the board. Besides myself, there's Kirby Gilbert and Lowell Skoog. You may be familiar with Lowell. Last year, he got the Western Heritage Ski Award for his book. And all 3 of us are quite active in the community. These are some of the things we do. We do a lot of lectures, both internally and out in the community. We all work with a number of different institutions and museums. FWSA Ski Association, Ancient Skiers, ISHA, a number of museums. And this is, again, part of our mission is to work externally to coordinate activities and bring the concept of ski history to other institutions. And we all write a number of articles about skiing history. Here are just some of the lectures we've given internally. I've given lectures, Lowell has given lectures, Deb Armstrong has done several. We've done one on avalanche dogs. This is something I did this February in Leavenworth, Washington, talking about the skiing history, ski jumping history. Lowell did one there earlier on his book. Just typical of what we do. Now, another thing that all 3 of us do is write articles about ski history. And we're fortunate in Washington to have some great institutions. One of them is historylink.org, which is the online encyclopedia of Washington history. And the other is a website for local authors run by Central Washington University. And I've done a whole series of essays on both of them. The number have been cut off a little bit. But this is a great way to get the message of skiing history out to the community. And the advantage of sites like this is that it's digitally available. So if someone is doing research on skiing history, Dr. Google will take you right to the sites and you can spread the word quickly. Just what this means, the Central Washington University does, they keep track of who visits your site. And in this year, 1,023 people went to my site and looked at my essays. So you really spread the message far and wide.
Okay, John,
Yep.
I'm giving here.
That's about it. Yeah, these are just examples of the kinds of essays we do that appear in a number of different forums. I'm a regular contributor to Ski History magazine. Let me end with this. Anyone here a member of ISHA, International Ski Histories Organization? Wonderful, great thing. They have a directory of all the ski museums in the country. They have a new grant program. If you're starting or expanding your museum, they can give you money. And they're also putting together a new international ski museum organization to work internationally. So if you're interested in ski museums, visit them. The last thing I'll say is that this is the next wave of museums. We have a Pacific Northwest Ski Hall of Fame. It's recently been redone, and the way we transmit information are QR codes. You use them in a restaurant, and it's a wonderfully efficient way to get a lot of information accessible to the public. And this is what it looks like. This is our 1987 class. QR codes are underneath, so user-friendly and very efficient. So thank you.
We've got about, I think, 20 minutes before we're were supposed to go somewhere else. So the intent here is to ask, I encourage people to ask questions. This is an unusual opportunity to get so much knowledge, but one of the things I want to do before we go there is introduce you to Phil Puglisi, and Teresa is here too. Oh, she's not? Okay. They're associated with fundraising for the National Ski Hall of Fame in Ishpeming. And so you can expand the question if you want to know about where the heck is the Upper Peninsula. I happen to know Phil doesn't know where it is, or he does know where it is, but he hadn't been there, but he's raising money for them. I do have some questions for you guys. First off, John Lundin, how the heck do you decide who is a Washingtonian Olympian? Have we got a mic over there?
That's very interesting. Because Deborah Armstrong's parents were on the original board, and Deborah was born and raised and trained and learned to ski and learned to race in Washington, they insisted we take a very hard line on this. And only people who were almost like, had Deborah's connections with Washington, those are the only people we let in. So that really excluded a number of people who lived and trained in Washington, but didn't have that long association. The classic example is Bill Johnson, who won the downhill in 1984, and he trained for 2 years in Washington for the Olympics, but he didn't make the cut because he'd really learned to ski and competed elsewhere.
We keep going gliding.
Yeah. The other group that's going the other way, if you go to Winter Park, the argument is there, if a racer drives through, Steamboat Springs, if a racer drives through Steamboat Springs with the skis on the car, he's a Steamboat Springs racer. So those are the options. We chose to go conservative, and I still, you go either way, but we're really proud of the ones we have with the deep involvement in the state of Washington.
Pass that mic over to Bill. Bill, I know I should have put a plant panel up for you, but one of the great things you guys have going for you are all the Olympians from Olympic Valley, and you're calling them ambassadors. But tell us a little bit about how they're playing into the development effort for the snow.
Well, they're spokespeople. They're part of our heritage and our culture. It's going on right next door with Travis and some of the other folks. And to me, it's almost like the two panels could be connected, because what we're talking about is history, culture. They're the ones making the next wave of history and culture that all of our institutions should be embracing and celebrating as we go forward. That's back to my feeling about it not really being a museum, but more of a cultural center to celebrate this amazing snow sports that we're all involved in, and to let the rest of the world know why we're crazy enough to keep doing it all these years. So what they do is we call on them occasionally to speak. Travis did some fundraising for us in the last year that helped raise some money, go ski with Travis for a day kind of thing. So they're just part of the culture. They're the icons of what we're all about. All the way down through, I always make this analogy, what other, I bore people because I say this all the time, but what other sport in this world do you have a millionaire sitting next door to a guy living out of his car on a chairlift, both enjoying the same thing? And that's part of the culture that makes it so special that we want to exhibit in our facility for the kids, for the community, for everybody, because it's that common thread that goes through everything.
Throw your hand up if you got a question. Phil.
Well, first of all, thanks everybody for coming to this. This has just been fantastic. As mentioned, we do work with the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. It's in Ishpeming, Michigan, which is right outside of Marquette. The museum is dedicated to the Hall of Fame athletes and people involved, which Allan is an honored member of, and it's great to have him along with the rest of his family and some members next door that will soon end up being in the hall. That's on a national level, but working with these other museums is inherently important. And I'm a firm believer that a high tide raises all ships in this whole process, that all these museums need to really work together on it. And as mentioned, along with doing what we did this morning with our talk, I have actually arguably one of the largest binding collections. I'm a binding geek around. We're moving pretty much forward with hundreds of bindings in my museum at my house, along with a lot of heritage products. And if you go actually to our site, skitalk.com, we have a huge retrospect section with thousands of pictures and articles from years past of ski gear. So it's something that definitely complements what is going on here and the interactive ability. And on one of the note, if you can make it to the Utah, the Alphakin Museum, and if you're a fashion person, you've got the Barbara Alley collection, which is just incredible. Barbara was a designer back in the 70s, producing some of the arguably most beautiful clothing in the ski industry, and her collection there, as another Hall of Fame member, is something definitely to behold and to be able to experience that. By all means, I recommend getting to that. Yes, and the fashion show that when we've had the Hall of Fame events in there, which have just been tremendous, and we've got videos. I believe the Hall of Fame has some videos hosted on that, and Connie did a beautiful job producing all of those videos. But what they've done there, and also to experience the Olympic Park, the ski jumping, the water ramps and everything, and really enjoy that. So if you can make it over that, it's a short 7-hour drive from here. And it's easy drive, come on. So I definitely recommend you getting over, seeing it along with our other local museums, and to be able to support these museums, because, and contradicting basically, if we forget our future, we don't know where we're going, but it's definitely important to remember what we've done in the past and where we are going.
Okay, questions, Norbert?
I have just a question for Ingrid. Ingrid, would it help at all if if letters were written by Far West and LA Council, San Diego Council, and clubs to send to the powers that be in Norco? Would that in any way help to push them to do something so that you could get that further done? Okay.
Norbert, I've already done that. I know Jane, I think you wrote a letter for me, and I had some other people that I'm associated with, and people from all over the world that are familiar with my library. So the city has about 5 or 6 different letters, so I think maybe I need to get a little more proactive and start prodding them a little bit more. But I've done the letter writing campaign. So
I know that we're all willing to turn around and support your project, and that's why I was asking the question.
Right, so I'm with Bill. I think I need to start playing hardball.
Okay, we're gonna have to buy some war paint, maybe get an elephant and some spears, I don't know. Other questions? Jane?
Yeah, this is a group of ski clubs, and are your museums interested in ski club collections? I know that you, Ingrid, might talk to you have a collection, I believe.
Yeah, let me speak a little bit to that. When Mammoth had a ski museum, how many people were able to visit the Mammoth Ski Museum when it was there? Which it was a fantastic thing. But the Grindelwald Ski Club, of which Norbert and Sandra, is anybody else here in the Grindelwald Ski Club? So Norbert and Sandra are the representatives, but they have a tremendous trophy case. How long is that? 12 feet and about 8 feet high, and one of the pictures that Allan had of the ski library, it showed that trophy case, but it went to Mammoth, and then the Mammoth Museum closed. How long was it in storage in Mammoth?
A couple of years.
So it was up there a couple of years, and then I don't remember if it was you or somebody else from Grindelwald and said, hey, how would you like to have the Grindelwald trophy case in your ski library? I'm like, great, bring it. So they went up with a truck took pictures of how it was assembled. The top, so tall, the top comes off of the bottom. They brought it. A bunch of the Grindelwald Ski Club members came out and put it together and reassembled it. And then just in the last 6 months, Norbert and Sandra brought out the Grindelwald Ski Club archives, which has all of their newsletters. There's an amazing, which I thought was an amazing idea for a ski club. When a ski club started in 1949, Sutter Kunkel started it, and he started a large, every president of the club had a scrapbook, and they put in what they wanted for that. So it's really amazing when you go back and look at what Sutter put in that scrapbook and some other things. So I have the Grindelwald Ski Club archives and trophy case at the ski library. So I think it's important that clubs do save their archives. Of course, I think it's important that they, we save everything that is associated with skiing, but especially I think the early history of the clubs. And I've got a large collection of things from a Southern California club called the Big Pine Ski Club, which was started in 1932. So I have a lot of their archives as well. So that's also a really important component of the ski history.
What I'm thinking, Ingrid, is when we're in Palm Springs next year for this convention, maybe, I'm calling on you next, Allan, maybe we should mount
Have a field trip.
a visit.
Yeah.
And maybe on that visit, we should stop by City Hall. Tell them
If it's not resolved by then, that sounds like a great idea.
And bring your kids and grandkids, right?
Yeah. Allan, I know you guys have ski clubs in mind.
Yes, but I want to put a cautionary note in all of this. And it comes from experience. When we started out building the ski museum, we thought we had all the space that we would ever need. And guess what? We're out of space, okay? And at the ski archives, they're out of space. And so as far as your planning is concerned, that's one of the things that you need to keep in mind, is that you are going to grow. People are going to want to put things into your facility, and you want to take as much as you can, but you've got to have the space for it. And that is what we are finding loud and clear right now in our museum.
Let me just speak from the standpoint of small ski museums. We have no room for any other artifacts, and people are wanting to donate to us all the time, and we turn down 99% of what people want us to take. I'm also involved in Sun Valley. They recently opened a new museum over there. If you've been to the old one, the new one is fabulous. It's a regional history museum, of which skiing is just a part. And that's actually fairly typical of many ski areas that grew up in an area where there was mining or ranching. Steamboat Springs is like that, Telluride is like that. Their museums tell the whole history of which skiing is just a part. But before they moved and expanded, everyone in Sun Valley who had been there a long time wanted to donate their skis. And they have a warehouse of old skis that have no use now. There's simply not enough space to store them. So everyone who thinks they have a collection of the best things ever, boots and skis, unfortunately, there's very little space or opportunity in ski museums for that kind of material.
If you go over to Warm Springs side of Sun Valley, there are several yards that have fences made out of, I don't know, hundreds of skis. Paul?
Yeah, so this is for Allan Engen. I noticed that it seemed like you made a smart move to have both a sports center and a museum in the same building. Is that the sports center more for activities, or is and then it's connected to the museum?
The Joe Quinney Winter Sports Center was done in a way to foster the contributions that Joe Quinney and his family had made over many, many years. And they were big in a lot of different areas, and we felt like with them putting a large sum of the money towards the building itself, that the building should carry their name, but the Alfingen Ski Museum would have a major part of that particular building facility. The other thing that we found out though, and I just say this, everything is great, but there are some drawbacks. One of the drawbacks that we had is we thought that we were really good about our planning, and so we planned a facility that covered all kinds of stuff, cafes, shops of various kinds, anything that you wanted. And we found out that we didn't have the know-how, number one, and we didn't have the staffing that could support something like that. So what we ended up doing is partway through, we sold back part of the building facility to the park, to the Olympic Park. So they actually own the building, but we have a long-term lease for our museum to operate. So that's the way that worked.
That's a smart way to go.
Bill, I think you're archiving a lot of things, and I think the long-term plan is to have a permanent archive, not on display, that you could rotate stuff through. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And to Jane's question, very much see our role as being the archive for a lot of club history. Whether that needs to be digitized at some point because of space issues. The space issues are huge. And I think even in the design, you may have seen that we've already had the architecture up. We already know we're out of space. Before we even start, we already know that we need off-site archival space. And so we're going to be exploring those things. And back to the question about people want to donate. I've always taken the attitude over the years, bring it on, dump the junk on the floor, but always with the collections policy is that you take it all with the understanding and the agreement that we're not going to keep it all. Because what you have to do is you have to get 100 items to get 10 that you really want to accept into the collection. So that's part of the challenge of running a museum is not turning people away, because hidden in that box somewhere is going to be a photograph or something that you really want. So you have to take the bad with the good and call out the rest. And as long as donors understand that Grandpa's skis may not always be part of the collection, and they may not even be on the premise anymore, like gotten rid of, then you can move forward in that way.
One thing, Phil, just one, next. I just moved in front of you. One thing we in Far West have a great deal of thanks for Bill and the Western Ski Sport Museum. Bill maintained an evergreen display of our great awards, and for at least as long as I was involved, we had 39 years of recipients on display in the museum. And one of the thoughts, we don't know what will happen, but one of the thoughts is there will be a place for Far West in this new museum. We're
absolutely
tied at the waist, really, and one way or another, we'll be able to display either electronically or maybe the great awards in some corner.
Far West is just core to what we want to do. I mean, back to 1931 and the founding of California Ski Association. 30, sorry, thank you. It's just core to the whole thing. So those awards can be brought back. Right now our museum's closed because we're archiving, but that would be part of the long-term plan, is to bring all those awards back, whether it's digital or plaques on the wall or something, where all that history can be seen. So, yeah.
We're going to Phil next, but I walked into the National Ski Hall of Fame, and that thing is, I know we got 4 minutes, I'll take one of those 4. Norbert is always watching his watch. Are you going to happy hour?
No, I have to go take a couple of aspects.
Okay. We walked in, and I'm looking at these plaques of names, and they had a plaque of the early supporters for Ishpeming, and the first one was the King of Norway. Number 2, these are the oldest of the early supporters. Number 2 on that plaque of very famous people was Joe Ross, our own Joe Ross. And he was born in 1898, I think. He was the oldest person on there. Those are the kind of things you lose if you don't get them in the museum and get them posted. That was really impressive. Phil.
One of the things that we found with the National Hall, where we're helping out, is going in the archives. A lot of that equipment that you don't have on display are great revenue sources. That you can use them in your silent auctions. You can use them as items that you can resell. to help fund the site. And when somebody donates something, just so they're understanding that, again, while it might not end up in your auction, or with books you've got duplicates and such, where you have an opportunity to create revenue, because sometimes that revenue is as if not more important than that additional item in your museum. And we found that going down to the archives at the National Hall, so the stuff that I found down there is, oh my God, but it wasn't relevant to the members that were in the hall. But we found stuff that we put in our auctions that was worth thousands of dollars to people, and it really helps fund the site and funds keeping your...
You had a lot of stuff, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had some original artwork from the K2 Black Panther skis that what's his name bought from Mammoth. Rusty Gregory bought $15,000, which again, that is a huge funnel into the organization.
One of the things I want to remind you, I don't know if this is my last chance, but inside your handout in your bag is this flyer, which describes our new project, the Legacy Project, and it wants to involve every one of you and all of your friends in this recording of history. I want a one-page vignette on when you were born, not the date, but the year, when you first started skiing, and your most memorable moments. That's what this thing is about. It's going on our website, and everybody's going to be able to get access. Allan Engen, I think, is number 9, and the first 100 are going to be known as Legacy Pioneers, and Allan, he's there. Do we have any pressing questions? We got another minute. Joe?
Not a question, but to expand on that, you can also send in a legacy for anybody that you know that is deserving of it. You can hear me? No. To expand on on the legacy project, that we're looking for people to send in vignettes on themselves, but you could also send it on other people that you know that within the ski industry in the Far West. It's not limited just to yourself.
We also have an in memoriam category. If you don't really want to write a vignette or maybe only a paragraph for someone who's passed, we've got a category for that, and we welcome that too. Anybody have something pressing that you need to close on? I want to close by thanking these people. They came from far away, except for Bill. And I feel embarrassed we only had an hour and a half. We needed 3 days. But thank you, guys. Another big hand. I think everybody's going to be here this evening. Are you going to be here to dinner? Are you guys staying for dinner? Okay, we'll all answer questions on the Snowsport Museum, but everybody else will be here. Come on over to table 2 or 1, I don't know, and say hello to these people. Thank you.